Hello, welcome to Inside the XR Studio as part of the South by Southwest 2021 online program. We've got a great panel today for you, and the topic is XR at a Crossroads, Maintaining Empathy. I'm your host, Ryan Groves, and this panel was co-produced by Studio Cyro, who provided these awesome 3D graphics for us. So given that we're in virtual reality and we have a bunch of VR experts, I thought we'd do something different for our introductions and actually teleport to each person's space in order to give the introductions. So let's get started. My name is Ryan Groves, and I'm the founder of Infinite Album, and we're using artificial intelligence to make music adapt to long-form experiences. Right now we're focused on Twitch live streaming, so providing copyright-free music and interactivity for Twitch streamers. But we see a lot of potential for VR as well. And so here we are in a music video that I created with Dan from Studio Cyro. And this is actually one of my personal compositions. It's sort of a duet between a male and a female about a breakup. And we're here in the female's environment, and you can see there's rain coming down. And this was animated entirely in Quill by Dan. I have no idea, my dear. Our next panelist is Lucas Risotto, who is a futurist and virtual reality and augmented reality creator. So Lucas, tell us more about yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Lucas. I'm a creative technologist. I make lots of crazy projects with futuristic tech. And mainly I've created a VR game called Where Thoughts Go, which you can get on the Quest and everything. And also I create a YouTube show called Lucas Builds the Future, where, as I said, I create crazy things with futuristic tech. This is my room, at least it used to be. And it's actually a photogrammetry scan of my room that I did for one of my projects, in which I was trying to create a portal between me and my best friend so we could see each other's rooms and talk to each other like we were actually there. It was basically a quarantine project. And yeah, VR, AR excites me, future excites me. I'm very, very excited about most things.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having us in your room. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I've never had this many people in here before.
We should have a flat party here.
Great, let's go to the next panelist space. Our next panelist is Dan Frank, and he's a co-founder of Studio Cyro. And here we are in one of Studio Cyro's spaces. And Dan, tell us a little bit more about the space.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I'm Dan. I'm a VR artist and one of 7 co-founders actually of Studio Cyro. We are an international team of designers, animators, and developers using the VR painting tool Quill to produce handcrafted experiences both in and out of VR, such as this environment right here. Here we are in one of the amazing environments we built for our original VR series called Tales from Soda Island, which I have directed together with Funi. Soda Island was originally created as an independent music label years ago, actually, and Funi was the one who actually visualized the world of Soda Island and its characters and created the crazy detailed lore behind it. And the set we are standing in right now is actually is high above the trees of the Neon Jungle, which was also the title of our second of the 3 episodes we produced last year. And this thing up there, that's the treehouse of Refrag, who's the alter ego of one of the real-life music artists of Soda Island, and he also wrote the score of this particular episode. You can find all of the 3 episodes called The Multiverse Bakery, The Neon Jungle, The Quantum Race. You can find all of them in the Oculus TV and on the Quill Theater, on all of the Oculus headsets. And apart from creating our very own VR series, we're also tapping into developing games and platforms such as this one actually. So shout out to our very own Nick Saunders, who developed the space for today's panel. So yeah, that's the rough outline of what we do at Studio Cyro.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to be in this space. It's really beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, everything is done entirely in Quill. I think, as far as we know, we are actually the world's first series that is entirely created in VR. So, as far as we know. But yeah,
Cool.
I did a vlog entirely created in VR.
all right. There you go. Then it's yours.
Hey, question, if I may. Can this run on Quest?
Yes. And this is only one of, I think, like 12 environments we had in one episode. And it's all, obviously there's a lot of kind of optimizing involved, but this is all entirely done in Quill, no outside tool, and yeah, completely running on Quest. Quest 1 and 2.
Yeah, this is something that I've found happens a lot when we show people these spaces, is they immediately want to start using Quill to create their own spaces, because there's just such a natural feel to these spaces.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I see more detail every time I come here. It's like I didn't notice the fucking some of those things in the background. Big like Squidward's home right there, and the fucking teapot.
There you go. That's one of the kind of special things in our series, that every time you go in there, we have people going in there like 10 times, and every time they see something else. And that's kind of what we do. We want to do a lot of those little Easter eggs in every little corner.
Yeah.
Actually, bye. He's gonna live in Solar. That's it.
So much to the panel recording. Ooh, that's Ryan. Welcome to Tivoli
Hello,
Cloud
Christina.
VR. So
Yeah,
good
thank
to
you so
see
much.
Yeah.
So this is Christina Kinnaminardi, and she is the CMO of Tivoli VR. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much for having us on that wonderful panel. And yeah, that's my home world. We are Tivoli Cloud VR. We are, so to say, the successor of High Fidelity. Like when they pivoted to doing audio only, we picked up the source code and made it even better. And this is like my home world, which I built with the help of a lot of community members when the lockdown started. And we had like 2 lockdown dance parties in here, also as fundraiser for Folding at Home. And
Awesome.
there's like 70 people in it, and that really like saved my sanity to be able to dance in a crowd again. And yeah, as CMO, I also like to advertise this world a bit. So we are distributed, we are open source, you can put up your own server, host your own worlds. We have a JavaScript, TypeScript API with which you can script like these gravity changes, which I just demonstrated on the icon over there. And we have GLTF support, and of course we have licensed high fidelity stellar spatial audio, so you can put up attenuation zones around the dance floor, so you can have like really loud music to go wild on the dance floor, while you can actually have like quiet, super private conversations in the areas around it. And that's really one of the big examples where I think VR is so much better than real life.
So cool. It's a beautiful space.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and we are also like focusing a lot on research and science now. Like we have like Simon Fraser University giving lectures in here, and the great thing is like our newest project is a GPT-3 interface with which we
cool.
hopefully then can build our own NPCs.
Oh, great. So you can generate conversations then, huh?
That would be awesome. I'd love to have somebody to talk to when no human is online, and sometimes AI is more understanding than...
Well, that's what I like to hear as someone who uses AI for music.
Come in here! Get your music composing up in here.
Absolutely. Great. Well, thanks so much for showing us the space.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I've put up our wonderful panel poster behind me. So let's go back to the South by Southwest panel.
Let's do it. All right.
So welcome back to our South by Southwest studio. And as I said, the topic of our panel today is XR at a Crossroads, maintaining empathy. So I wanted to open up the panel with sort of an open-ended question. Why do you think that XR and I think more specifically virtual reality headsets, why do you think they were called the empathy machine when they first came out?
So I think that it has like two reasons. One is that in VR you can like express your true self. You're not dependent on your wins in the gene lottery or on your age or whatsoever. So people don't have prejudices against you, and you can like shape your avatar as you feel fine with it, as your true expression of your true self. And on the other hand, like also VR opens up new senses. Like through the sense deprivation, I always feel much more intensely when I'm in VR. And like when I get close to an avatar, I can like even feel the touching on my face, like a little circuit. And it's what my brain does to me. So I think like bottom line is that you're much more present and feeling much more comfortable with yourself in a VR environment. And that, on the other hand, enables you to be much more open and transparent and honest with your partners, your conversation partners in VR. And therefore, I think it's, empathy machine is like the right description.
Yeah. A lot of great points.
Yeah, same for me. The feeling of presence, of being there in a space with someone, that's the biggest point about VR. And also something that, if you look at it from the other side of people who might be a little bit more shy, let's say in real life, in a conversation, talking to people, getting close, getting intimate. That is something that people who might have problems with that in real life and opening up in a conversation, that you can do in VR. There is still that feeling of intimacy, of being close, and being able to open up, that you wouldn't maybe do in real life. And I think that is something that's amazing about VR, that opens up a lot of possibilities. And also when it comes to talking, communicating with your family, with your friends and family, now in a time of COVID, in a Zoom call, I personally don't feel connected at all. But if they all had headsets, some of them have, but if they all had headsets, we could play games, we could hang out together, and it would feel like we are actually spending time together.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually feel like more connected with like just audio than a Zoom call. Something about the Zoom call, I don't know what it does to me. But apparently, given that Clubhouse is such success, there's probably something to that too. But really, anything can be an empathy machine. Of course, books. The entire premise of like fiction is that you can, by just reading words, enter the mind of a character and connect with them and see things from their perspective at a very deep level. The difference with VR is that it makes that experience of being in someone's head much more literal and much more visceral. So VR at its height, it really allows you to soak in the perspective of somebody else in a way that's like really, really hard to replicate. Which is not to say that it's exactly like the most powerful medium, but it has a really, really high immersion potential when it comes to, because you can literally turn someone's perspective into software that you can download and consume. So that's one of the cool things about it. But it can also be used for the other side, because we talk a lot about feeling empathy, and we assume that all the experiences are going to be used so you can feel empathy for like good guys, but you can also use it as a propaganda tool as well to make people feel empathy and feel emotionally connected to terrible people, which is something that's not very often talked about.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that this applies to all immersive mediums? This sort of default empathy mode. Do you is it the same for augmented reality, or is it not as strong for augmented reality? What do you think about that?
So I guess the difference is like how much of your look at it as a collaborative effort between the software and the brain, right? Or let's use a book as an example. It basically uses words in a page to create an entire world, but that world building is happening entirely in your head, right? So text, your brain does most of the work. It almost does entirely all the work. In VR, computers are doing most of the work. It's giving you the senses directly. And what you're operating with is just like, you're just trying to piece it all together, but you're not like actively building a world in your head as much as you're just experiencing. So your attention is focused on different things, and you can use that in different ways. As for AR, to make compelling, really immersive AR, it just means that you have to think more like a book and be like, okay, I'm just giving you a little bit, which means that I need to start using your brain more as like a computing device, And so it really depends on how you use it. It's AR, it gives you, instead of giving you all the senses directly, it gives you a little bit of senses, which can be enough to create a lot of immersion. It's ultimately, like with anything, is how you use it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a great analogy, I think.
I think like currently, most of the time we experience AR on our tablets and smartphones. And for me, this is more like an add-on to reality, which gives me like information about stuff or nice little things. But I'm still like, looking through my phone. But I once on a conference I tested the Magic Leap, and that was pretty impressive to have like these jellyfish floating around. So I'm excited and curious to see how the storytelling within the AR medium, if you wear it as like glasses, will develop. And I think that's also like the whole exciting like Wild West approach we're having with all these emergent technologies now that we have lived for like 100 years with like writing the same media, be it like film, television, radio, and now like since 5 years it's finally become available to artists, technologies like AR, VR, AI, and this is like so exciting to find as an artist what shall I do creatively to make this medium immersive and empathetic.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge that we have in the music space too. I think we've seen a real change now that music has become ubiquitously available through Spotify and Pandora, that people no longer really search for like a particular artist, and also because there's such a massive amount of people that are creating musical content. I feel like kids these days actually are looking for like mood-based music, or try to create an atmosphere with the music that they listen to. And then also with TikTok happening, like the way that people discover music has completely upended, so that you see Stevie Nicks songs all of a sudden peaking after 30 years because some guy was drinking cranberry juice on a skateboard. So yeah, I think it's something that we also, I think, needs to happen in the musical space, and I also don't think it's quite there yet, kind of like augmented reality.
Still, the great thing about digital technology is that it has like democratized that whole creative approach. Like before, everybody had computers. you had to be a recording artist. You had to pay the studio to record your album, or you had to go to film school to get hands on a 60mm camera. And now, thanks to digital technology, everybody can do it. And of course, that changes the field. But what I'm so pumped about is that it also like opens up possibilities for, like everybody can become a creator now and can like put new input to how we are dealing with that medium.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about talking about AR. Sadly, the closest thing to trying out the Magic Leap that I've gotten was a few minutes ago, seeing the actual Magic Leap, a virtual one on your desk in your room, Lucas. That was it. I haven't had it actually on my head yet, but I'm wondering, in AR, are there effective stories being told in VR, in AR, or is it basically just games and kind of gimmicks at the moment? Could you even tell a story, or could you change your surrounding in a way that you can transform it into something that you can use for storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly attempts. Magic Leap has some cool applications, and some people have tried to do some stuff. There's not a lot of funding in this space because there's no way to consume it, right? So you're like, oh, I want to do this story that like 1,000 people are going to see if it does well. So it's that's the main reason there's not a ton of exploration, but Magic Leap experiences like Tanandi really give you like a little glimpse of what you can do, especially stories that revolve around like one object or a small number of objects, because again, if what you're thinking is about full transformation of space, you're starting to lean a little bit more towards VR.
Then go into VR.
But if your story, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But if your story starts to lean a little bit more of like, oh, it's about the exploration of this object or about your connection between your space with the story, then like it starts to tilt towards AR. But of course that won't matter soon, because like there's tons of interesting VR AR hybrid headsets that are going to be coming out in the next years. So you're going to see a lot of experiences that play with that dial, right? But sometimes it's in your room, sometimes it's not. And there's a lot of cool potential there.
I think it's also like a great potential to bring in like story characters or story elements into the real world. Like for example, I heard a great pitch for a project where two women wanted to use like the Berlin subway, like one line of it, and on each station have like ghosts of people who did something historically valuable at these stations appear in your subway seat, and that I think is like an amazing idea to like integrate the story you want to tell by bringing fictional characters into real life with the AR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing.
I think it goes along, maybe not directly, but Lucas, what you said earlier with AR having to be a little bit more like books, that they don't give you everything, they don't surround you in an environment, but it builds something in your own environment so that you could basically create your own little story. If you, let's say you have an AR pet or something, that just jumps around in your own environment, you can build a very personal story that isn't made by somebody else, but there's something you could bring into your life, and that way it gets more intimate, maybe that way.
Yeah, I was also thinking that once augmented reality probably has a better chance of becoming something that you have access to more in your daily life, mm-hmm. at least earlier than VR probably. And I feel like that probably is the sweet spot of augmented reality, is having something that also persists throughout, all of the situations of your day potentially. Mm-hmm. What were you going to say, Lucas?
Wait, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, but also like just ask yourself the basic question of if this works just as well in VR, then it's not really an AR project. You can still do it, but the space needs to have a deeply ingrained purpose in the DNA of the whole thing, to the point that it's inseparable, right? If you take out your home, your space, it can't be the same thing. It can't work the same way.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good metric. So, sort of talking about how new headsets are coming out. I feel like a lot of us here have been part of the VR community for quite a long time, and I feel like we've seen it sort of not be adopted for a very long time, or have trouble with adoption for a long time. And I was wondering if you felt like the VR community has gone through changes because of that.
Yeah, I can feel those changes. Like I think like 5 years ago, when the Rift and the Vive became available for consumers, like every early adopter interested in that media jumped on it, and it was like a really great community feel. And then we also had like this concept of like virtual worlds, like High Fidelity, Sansa, VR Chat. They all started off as like, yeah, this is like we are the only metaverse, and this is the one where I'm living in. And sometimes I do like satellite trips to visit my friend in the other world, but it had more of like a community feel. And then since the Quest got released, and of course amplified by the quarantine situation, like suddenly the early adoption or suddenly the mass adoption we were all praying for started to happen, but it changed the environment. And now I have the feeling, whereas it used to be like I got like my favorite homeworld and 2-3 befriended places and visits. Now it's more like VR is, and the applications are rather used as a tool to serve like that special use case. Like today I want to visit my grandma in VR, that's why I'm gonna go to Hubs. Tomorrow I want to illustrate my photogrammetry with particle effects, then I go to Tivoli. On Monday I want to give a talk, then I go to Engage. So it's not anymore that what was so nice in the beginning, that you could like have a Saturday evening, nothing to do, and just jump in somewhere and see, somebody is gonna hang out there, like in real life at your favorite pub. You'd always find friends, and that's not so much happening anymore. It's rather now like I got like in my calendar, like go to this app on Monday, to this app on Monday evening, and the other app on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's becoming more fragmented, essentially.
That's what I was looking for.
I'm more of a second wave creator, I guess. I started to learn how to develop in 2017. So I saw it happening in 2016. I was like, oh my God, she's amazing. But even then, it's been long enough that, you're starting to see people who enter VR now, like leaving VR. But it's always like, we have to understand that this happens with like every single good technology. People overestimate short-term impact and they underestimate long-term impact. Every technology has this. It's because people are like, oh my God, this is it. The people in 2016 who've been thinking about this for like decades, who are like, okay, this is the moment. But they don't realize that most people have never seen this before, and they need several years to get to that place where you are in your head. So it takes time, and it's part of the process. But yeah, it's been growing pains, but it's on schedule, and really excited to see other competitors to enter the space, because Facebook's the only real guy over here. And I have problems with Facebook, obviously, but I also like appreciate them because it's I don't know where we would be without them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I came into VR even later than you. I think it was mid 2018 where I started playing with Quill for the first time. And I mean, I was interested in VR before. I was kind of looking into the space, and I think even in 2016, I knew that I was going to do VR at a later stage, even without having tried VR before. So I I also feel like many people that this just somehow has to be the future. Just looking long term. But it's a good point that Facebook, yes, there are negative points or questionable points about how they deal with customers and how they shift around the space and how they can do just whatever they want to do. But yeah, I mean, they push VR as much as they can. They build great hardware, make it usable for the masses, and I think that's something we shouldn't underestimate. We have to look where it's going and how far they are taking it, but I think for VR as a whole, to become more mainstream, I think it was a good thing.
Yeah, I mean they've pushed super hard on VR.
For me, it's
very early in the stage.
For me, it's really a two-sided sword. Like
Yeah.
on the one hand, I read like Mark's vision, and Mark Zuckerberg has really like the most wholesome vision how to push VR forward. He says like we gotta take care of like good hardware at a good price. We gotta take care to produce applications and experiences, and we gotta take care to offer creators a platform to trade their experiences. So I've never read like a more wholesome, smarter vision about how to push VR. The only catch is that it's connected to Facebook, and there I see like also like a big danger, because
Absolutely.
as I said beforehand, like one of the great potentials of VR is that it enables you to express your true self. But what happens if there's like this real name policy on the now not anymore Oculus but Facebook headsets? What happens if like some transgender girl lives in a Catholic village on the outskirts, and if she had been like so far in VR chat happy to like anonymously with her persona trying out her new body, if that gets doxed, if that gets linked to the real world, that hey, in real life she's called Elsa Müller and lives in Buxtehude, then she people get killed about that.
Yeah.
So I think it's really a life danger for certain people to deal with that real name policy. And the other thing which is like to me really annoying is like it's so quick that you can get banned on Facebook. Like if I post the Venus de Milo, who has like one bare breast, I could get banned from Facebook, and then all my hardware is bricked, as are all games. So
Yeah.
doing the wrong post on my personal Facebook account or getting like harassed or there by others could lead to me losing like thousands of dollars worth of equipment and software, and that's a big risk, and I don't like that.
Yeah, I think this is really part of my motivation for this panel is it felt like the recent changes where Facebook did require your Facebook account for Oculus logins was a huge overstep, and really sort of like they promised, quote unquote, that they would never do that when they bought Oculus, and yet they're just steamrolling the whole process. And at the same time, they're hooking up Instagram messages to Facebook Messenger, which is kind of obvious and almost inevitable. But it seems like there's this real. It felt like a turning point where at the same time that VR is finally getting this adoption, Facebook is basically trying to control it as much as possible, and it just feels like there's a lot of friction there.
Yeah, and on that point, actually, that is why, if you don't know, that Germany is still fighting against that law of Facebook. They're fighting the good fight, kind of, and we'll see where it goes. But down the negative on that one, we since that happened, we cannot actually buy Oculus headsets. So, but I think it's good that what they're doing to kind of fight that steamrolling that Facebook just did. But yeah.
It's also good for privacy reasons, because I don't know if you've seen that in the TOS. They like automatically record your VR vision and everything and track it for the last half hour. So if somebody reports you, they can look into it. And if you don't uncheck or argue against it, also like any Facebook employee or any employee who has admin rights could like watch your POV making out with your long distance boyfriends, and that's really
Yeah. Well, also the fact that I think Zuckerberg was one of the first people to put the little slider window on the camera on your laptop. I remember when that first started happening, somebody saw it was on Zuckerberg's laptop. But there's I don't know, 6 cameras on the outside of your VR headset, so they could be just like mapping out your entire home.
They definitely are.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
They are data their business is your data. They can claim that they're pro privacy as much as they want, but they need your data to make money. It's like they just can't get away from it, which is why the only Google's going to do that too. Google's going to be the same thing. The only companies that can offer something different, maybe, are companies whose primary revenue source does not come from selling your shit. So Microsoft, Apple, Google and Facebook, theirs is going to be cheaper. It's going to be cheaper, maybe more popular, but there's a transaction here that's happening.
I still prefer Google because it didn't have like a Cambridge Analytica scandal so far.
Right, yeah, because the data that Google collects historically has been a little bit, it's historically less personal because they have failed to create a social network. They have tried, but they have failed, so they don't have that kind of personal data, so they become more like business collecting. And I mean, they are collecting, it's more infrastructure data, like what they have with Google Maps and stuff, which is what their AR play is going to be on, less on social and more on like just infrastructure of the AR world. But the one thing, just really quick about this, the only thing about Facebook banning you is that they're setting a precedent that has never happened in Tech before, in which they can ban a person, an individual, from using all of a corporation's products. Usually they ban your account. But we have never been in a place in which a company can ban you from using all their products. And in a world that's being more and more defined by big tech monopoly, a company banning you as an individual from using all their products could essentially mean a company has the power to like exclude you from an industry or a society in a really big fundamental way. Because it can be like, okay, Facebook banned me from using all their products, so I don't have Instagram, I don't have WhatsApp, I don't have Facebook, of course, I don't have whatever else they acquire, no Oculus. All of a sudden you're like nobody. So this is a weird precedent that they're setting. And I think they just didn't think about it that much. That's honestly what I think the problem was. They're thinking a little bit small, and they let that one slip by, but it's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a little bit biased because if it weren't for Facebook, there wouldn't be Quill. They're actually developing Quill, and without it, we wouldn't have this space. So,
True.
And these spaces, which you were also.
Now that's the bright side of the medal. It's like they're doing amazing tech. They're doing amazing applications. They know how to make like complicated technological processes simple and addictive, and they rule on that.
Yeah.
I just wish it were Microsoft, Apple, somebody else.
And Facebook is undercutting all the competition, so no business can really compete with them, and they all die early.
Yeah, I mean, Apple is currently, trying to go into the VR space. They're building their own VR headset, which is going to be, totally non-competitive, but I'm still interested in what they are trying to do. They have a big team working on this, and I think they are taking this seriously. But what can actually happen to somehow compete with Facebook? going back to the, also empathy machine, could there be maybe a different approach in approaching VR and sell it to, to the mainstream, other than making it cheap and having Facebook behind it?
Oh yeah. I mean, Apple's going to do what Apple has always done, which is like provide a product that's way more expensive, but perfects the UX in that class of product. Mm-hmm. Because in VR, if you have access to everything that like you could have, like eye tracking and hand tracking and pass through, and a really high quality, you can create things that are like truly, truly mind blowing, but it is very, very expensive. But if Apple wants to do that and step in and be like, we're going to do the best VR AR UX and we don't care how much it costs, we're just going to do the best one and work backwards from there, then that's probably what they're going to do. And that's, I think, what they've always done historically.
I've already started saving up for the $3,000 I'm going to spend on the Apple headset in 2022.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, Steam has been doing that a little bit, but Steam has not steamrolled Oculus yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I guess it could be a good point that Facebook is going to stay really, the main guys in the kind of low end, and they're really pushing for that in mobile VR. If Apple can come from the other side and push the high end, then they could somehow meet in the middle somehow. Or maybe Steam could then, be in the middle. We just need more people trying out different things.
Yeah, Facebook low end, Steam mid end, Apple high end, and HTC is.
Steam is actually nice and democratic and broad. Like Steam does like a wonderful, great working support for any headset, like starting with like the Rift DK1 to their own Valve Index to like my Pimax runs great on Steam. So I like Steam for its democratic approach. But I loved your conclusion. Like let's have Facebook do like the mass adoption on a low end and introduce people to VR. But let's also not forget about like other ways and other companies offering VR.
Yeah. That's what we're missing. We show people VR now with the Quest 2 and it's pretty cool, but we don't have anything that we go like, okay, this is what it is going to be for everyone very soon. There's no easy way to show that to people, and a really, really good product could do that, even if most people don't own it.
But the thing is, products are the one thing. The content is, I think, much more important. To produce content that works for all platforms, or is maybe.
The thing is, with the Quest, there's like also like in terms of creativity and media being like a big split. Like beforehand, you put on your experience and you could be sure everybody has a tethered headset because there was nothing else. But now it's like you have like, does it work on the Quest? Does it apply to that maximum polygon count? Particle effects, scripting, forget it. And for like displaying like really high-res experiences, you need people to be on a tethered headset with a computer. And what I've now experienced is that many people who got like their Quest and actually have like a graphics computer or gaming computer somewhere in their apartment, they don't even know what VR could offer, because they only see it like the optimized low poly variants on the Quest, and then I go like, okay, please plug in your Quest with a virtual link cable and visit me in Tivoli or try out Half-Life Alyx. And suddenly they go like, "Wow! I never would have thought that this is possible." And this would also be like a big pledge from my end to say like we also have to work on making people aware of what could be possible and what will be possible in 2 years once the hardware has caught up.
Yep. Yeah, I mean Dan, you touched on this as well with talking about the content that's being created. I feel like now a lot of the successful titles are really game oriented in the community, and that's probably due to the big push for mass adoption, and maybe due to like consumers understanding, what a game is and just trying out a new medium for something that they're familiar with. So I guess my question is, do you feel like the future is gonna maintain a focus on empathy? I mean, the little backdrop to that is the gaming community itself is not that empathetic. They've had troubles with Gamergate, and they've got a lot of issues going on. So in the future, do you think it's going to be dominated by gaming? Do you think that empathy will remain sort of like a strong consideration for the community? And then what other types of content will flourish, do you think?
So on the gaming community, the thing is that most games, the vast majority of all successful games they do feel empathy for the character that they're playing, which is usually someone who's like asserting dominance over others by murdering them in various ways, be it in a strategic game or like a shooter, etc. So it's that kind of like that is like the main empathetic loop that's going on.
That's one genre. Shooters are one genre, which is nice, but you also have like lots of strategic building, collaborative games, adventure games, puzzle games. So the gaming culture is not only the Gamergate shooting guys, but it's also already like picking up now. Like people are hiring more women, want to have like female game designers on their team, and it's also like with in terms of like game studies as a cultural academic field picking up. And so I have the feeling that finally after 20 years gaming matures into being like some male nerd shooting niche product, which it was beforehand, into like a culturally broadband and accepted and thought through creative art medium.
I mean, of course, and it is already. There's tons of beautiful games like that. It's just that he was talking about Gamergate and talking about more about not the gaming community as a whole, but we're talking more about trolls, really, the troll community. And the troll community is driven by very, very simple and toxic drives to hurt other people and assert dominance. Like that's what trolling is. You're trying to be bigger than someone else by saying, look, I can poke you and I can make you feel pain. Thus, I am bigger than you. And if you can do that at a massive scale, like in a viral scale, good job. You're in their head. You're like the most powerful person in the room, right? So,
yeah, and that's also dangerous in VR. I once got like when I was very early, like on my third day in high fidelity. And I don't know, my 20th day on the Vive, I got like sexually harassed in there, and some guy like he kept jumping into me and like screaming out like sexual harassing slurs towards me, and
Jeez.
And the unbelievable thing was I could have gotten so easy out of that situation by just like taking off my headset, but I was so immersed in that situation, like in a bad way, that I didn't get the idea just to take the headset off, but I was like trying to keep him calm by trying to port to a different world. And yeah, that was really like if I wouldn't have a thick skin in real life, or if I would have like experiences, that could have been like really traumatizing. And if that happens to the wrong person, they're never gonna pick up a headset again.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, going back to your question, Ryan, I definitely think the user base, the people going into VR, obviously will start with gaming. That's going to be the pull. Everybody's going to pick up Beat Saber and try out stuff, and then they're going to realize, oh, there's other cool stuff we could try. But I definitely also do see potential in in social VR becoming bigger in the future, with just teenagers nowadays just living virtually. Minecraft, Roblox, that's their thing. They're all gonna, many of them will get married virtually someday. And so I think it's not only the hardware that has to catch up, but maybe just the age. If we wait another 5 years, those guys will have the age of going into more social VR environments, and then maybe even from there create stories. Maybe those guys who like in platforms like Rec Room and stuff like that, you could build your own rooms and you could build your own stories. So the storytelling doesn't necessarily always have to come from the developers, but I think from the inside, people wanting to tell stories in VR, in that virtual space, which happens in Minecraft and stuff like that. I think that's going to be a big plus if those guys finally catch up and come to our world. That's going to be huge, I think.
Yeah. Especially with all the artificial intelligent generative stuff that's coming out, we're sort of on the cusp of those becoming like real tools that can be translated into this world as well.
Now I signed that. I got like a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old daughter now in the lockdown times, and we got both of them Nintendo Switches, and now they meet up with their school friends in Minecraft, Roblox, and Splatoon, and socialize there virtually. And of course, like once I allow them to wear the headset for more than 10 minutes, they're gonna do that in VR. But as I don't know yet how this will, how like prolonged headset wearing applies to the whole brain and sight development, I'm like, you're gonna get it like once you're 14, not before.
Yeah, that is kind of what I mean. The teenagers nowadays, it is completely normal for them, and not at all looked at as nerdy. It's normal for them to meet up that way, the way it was for us to do, I don't know, LAN parties or stuff like that. And so it's going to be totally normal for them to meet up in VR once they are a little bit older. And that whole generation sweeps into the whole market. Okay,
I kind of disagree a little bit, just because I was born at the tail end of the millennials. I don't like generation naming, but yeah. And back in 2008, when I was a teenager, the whole my whole life was dedicated to like online communities, Gary's Mod, Team Fortress 2, about creating things, making basically having this virtual existence that now we have, but directly like in virtual reality. And it was a big part of my life and a big part of a lot of people's lives, but it's also something that I outgrew as I got older, and I was able to socialize in the full ways that living in life lets you socialize, right? There was a point in which I was like, it was actually in the first time I kissed a girl. 2 weeks later, I quit Team Fortress 2 because I was like, okay, there's some cool stuff that we do out there.
This feels a little bit different. What is this?
No, that was literally what happened. I was like addicted to it. And then I kissed a girl. I was like, oh my God, okay. So social VR right now does an amazing job at giving people space to socialize and express themselves when they don't have access to any other better methods of socializing. But it is not like the fact that you can, meet people in VR is going to take precedence over meeting people at a bar, right? People are usually 90% of the time going to choose the bar because of just how much more stimulating and fulfilling and instinctively, what's the word?
Kissable it is
rewarding.
Exactly, rewarding. But just one thing, just so I can close it. It's definitely going to be more accepted, and it's definitely going to grow. But it's also like it's still going to follow this rule of like social VR is going to be the best at giving people the social space they need when they don't have any real life options, because at least for the foreseeable future, real life's going to have a lot more texture and a lot more benefits, and it's going to be more rewarding in general.
But that's just the puberty break. I was also like until I was 13, I was like a kind of gamer and tried myself at writing basic programs and stuff, and then I kissed a guy and suddenly sex and drugs and rock and roll took over for a couple of years. But once I experienced all that exciting real life stuff, I got back into computers, and it was just a break. And you got back too, Lucas.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely deep into it and deep in technology. I rarely ever use social VR because it's too removing for me.
And I'm not saying I want social VR to replace real life. Obviously, it's more on the point that it's going to grow. What you also said, the new generation, I think, is going to accept it more, and the general space is going to grow. And I'm not really hoping to replace social interaction necessarily with social VR. And also, by the way, social VR is not at all at the point where it should be there. It needs to be more. I think with the new generation, they are going to bring the input maybe that it needs to make social VR work properly. But also, I think I have more hopes for the storytelling aspect of users coming in, as it is in YouTube, Facebook. The users are generating the content, and for the VR content to not be reliant on the funding and stuff that you need. I want just users, people who have fun in social VR or in just VR spaces where you can create stories, to just come in and do their thing and let this space that we love, let this grow kind of naturally.
That's also a call to the platforms, and also something we are trying to achieve on Tivoli now, to make content creation as easy as possible for users. And this is going to open up the field.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, is that users are going to be creating a lot of these stories in the future, and Rec Room's a great example of a place where they give a lot of these creation options within their platform, even though they have the collaborative games as sort of their main thing. And but yeah, I wanted to move towards a close and ask you one final question. So what future milestone do you predict, and what future milestone are you most excited about that you expect the XR space to achieve?
Wow.
Riddle be that.
I have an answer. Let me just say that, just on to your point earlier, Roblox and Dreams, the PS4 game, are probably the biggest sources of VR innovation you can find. If you just stay there for 50 minutes and just play random games, you're going to see so many interesting things that no one would have done before, because once you give people the freedom to just do whatever they want to do in VR, just for fun, with no monetary incentive, you get lots of really creative output. So it's a really good place. Those platforms, they have made it so easy that literally anyone can do it. It's going to be a big part of developing the language of VR going forward. And as for what I'm most excited for, it's really virtual and augmented reality hybrid headsets. It will finally allow us to do all the AR experiences that we can only do in $5,000 devices and are still not that good, in virtual reality, using all the strengths of the medium, using the hand tracking and the eye tracking and all the things we already have in VR, locked down to a really good degree. And I think it's going to make the medium, it's just going to open up the medium. So it's going to be way less about gaming and just about augmenting your life and making, developing work. It's just going to, I think a big turning point for the VR industry.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't know if I can name a milestone, like a number of users or anything like that. But obviously, I'm currently in the VR space. We're running a studio. We are obviously hoping for VR to have success. We are having our own milestones. But I think apart from that, I also want to just see more success in the AR space. AR just right now is like a gimmick, or just an Instagram filter or something like that. But if AR, which is way more accessible than VR, gets more stories or more useful things, and more, if you use AR more creatively, I think you can reach a wider audience that recognizes that effect of just virtual worlds, and through that, I also think more people would come to VR.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, Christina?
Yeah, since up to last year, I've been on that train. By now, we're gonna be billions in VR. I'm like not good at predictions, but the two things I'm super excited about is, for once, that there's coming like more AI technology into VR, so that's gonna open up a whole new field, be it like conversational AI chatbots, or be it what Ryan is doing, like AI composed music or an AI triggered environments. That's gonna be amazing. And the other field which pumps me so much is the brain-computer interface integration. Like Valve announced, I think for 23, a headset which has like integrated EEG, which now, because now you have to wear like the headset on top of the Muse to do that. But like once we can really like do the user interface, direct that with our brains, that's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
I guess at that point, we're all gonna be literally empathy machines when that happens. So, well, let's see what happens.
Yeah. I think for me, like much like what Christina just said, I think I'm most excited about the thing that I'm actually trying to do, which is to make music more adaptive to environments and to make it more collaborative and interactive. So like, I envision a future where you're at a concert and the crowd can collaboratively control the BPM or the the lighting or even the style of the music, and it's like this whole interactive language on top of music. So hopefully I can be the one that does that, but I think it's going to happen regardless. So, well, thank you all so much for joining us, and thanks again to Studio Cyro for producing this amazing space for us. And yeah, exactly.
South by, this is so on brand. South by, you must love them right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we hope you enjoyed this first episode of Inside the XR Studio. And there'll be more to come. So thanks again.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks,
yes, this was great.
And thank you for the wonderful worlds here, Studio Cyro.
You're welcome. One last shout out to Nick Saunders, who made all this possible. He developed the space.
He's here.
Yeah. Buy Where Thoughts Go on the Oculus Quest, and check me out on YouTube.
Tales from Solar Island everywhere on Oculus headsets.
KS Princess, TivoliCloudVR.com.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye, guys.
Bye.